What's up, guys? Time and time again, I have expressed my love for the year 1981. A lot of times it happened accidentally. I'd review a movie and I'd look up the year, and sure enough, it'd be 1981. And so eventually I realized that 1981 is, bar none, the greatest year in horror history. Prove me wrong. Anyway, I'm going to give you my top 10 favorite movies from 1981. Let's do this. What is up, guys? It's top 10 time, and this one's going to be a really fun one, actually. And I'm not going to be doing one of these for every year, because sometimes a certain year you might not find 10 really good horror movies, and I'm not going to put number 10 as a bad horror movie. But 1981 has 10 good ones and then a lot more. There's so many good horror movies in this year, and it was tough for me to narrow down my top 10 because there's a lot of cream in that list, and it was tough to put them in a good order. And so much so that I have 4 honorable mentions I'm going to give you just real quick, okay? And a lot of these movies I saw for the first time over the past few years, actually. So excited to get this list out to you guys. So real quick, just giving you these honorable mentions. Madhouse, which is a great birthday slasher. I just reviewed this a couple months ago. I like unique slashers that have psychotic characters, and this one definitely has some psychotic characters, and like I said, it's a birthday slasher. Hell Night with the great Linda Blair. It's unique in that it looks like one of those old-timey like 50s. It even has like a 50s score to it. But also the killers are pretty much like Sasquatches. So it's very unique. And it has Linda Blair, of course. And then next on mention, the Funhouse, probably the best out of all the carnival horror movies. Still the one to beat. The great Tobe Hooper directed it. Another killer that doesn't seem human. Like his face is disfigured. He looks like a creature, and he's got this crazy scream that's irresistible. And then last honorable mention I'm going to give is The Howling. And I'm glad I got to mention this movie because my great friend who died a couple years ago, Derek Mayo, he actually sent me a Howling figure that he made, handcrafted himself out of, I think it was like paper mache. But it's right back there, and I even had Dee Wallace sign the Blu-ray for me, and I told her the story of Derek Mayo. So Howling is a great movie, though. Probably one of the best werewolf movies out there, especially in terms of practical effects, and you're probably going to see another one of those on this list. Okay, number 10, I'm going to give it to The Prowler, and really the big reason The Prowler's on here is because of the kills alone. This is probably the movie that the great Tom Savini is the most proud of in terms of kills. It's a slow-paced slasher, but when you get to the kills, they're insane. Like, especially the one kill where he's like crushing the guy's head. That's probably the most iconic kill. But then it has a really creepy ending too, like the shower scene that kind of makes no sense. But it's a solid slasher. And also the killer's getup. You know, he looks like a soldier with a mask on. So it's a unique looking killer. Number 9, Friday the 13th Part 2. Easily my second favorite Friday movie. Probably has some of the best kills. One of my favorite kills from the franchise actually is the guy in the wheelchair, and he gets the machete to the face, and it's a great jump scare too. But also it's got one of the best, probably the best final girl out of the whole franchise in Amy Steele. Great third act, a lot of great things about the second movie actually. And when Warren Gillette jumps through that window and you see him unmasked, that is the creepiest looking unmasked Jason out of the whole franchise. Number 8, another camp slasher, The Burning. I could easily put this movie on the list just because of one of the kills. The raft kill is probably one of the best slasher kills in history. And it's, you know, it's a group. It's not just one person. It's this group of kids. And Tom Savini's work, he says his favorite movie that he's done is The Prowler in terms of his work. I prefer this. That raft kill alone is insane. But it's also a really good camp slasher. I'm a sucker for good camp slashers anyway. But I enjoy all the characters in this movie. Cropsy, the killer that is burned. There's a lot of scary, creepy scenes with Cropsy actually. It's got a great score. Love The Burning. Number 7, My Bloody Valentine. This is, I guess you could call it like a blue-collar slasher. I like the setting of this. You know, it's set up in this miner's town. I believe it's in Canada. And it's, you know, it's just really cold, but it's like a blue-collar worker slasher. And then you got this nice little love triangle. And a lot of times a love triangle can get in the way of a slasher. I just did a review, actually, and I was talking about, Cobra. And I thought the love story in Cobra kind of annoyed me. But this one, it actually works. And it plays into the reveal at the end of the movie, actually. And I won't spoil that. I know I've spoiled some stuff in my previous top 10s. I've gotten in trouble for it. So I'm going to make a new rule. I won't spoil anything in my top 10s. And if I do, I'll give you a quick warning. But also, in kills, I'm going to count this, even though the kills weren't released theatrically. When they finally showed us what these kills were supposed to be, especially the one where the gas mask killer, like lifts her up and puts the back of her head through this rusty pipe, water pipe, and water's like running out of her mouth. That's great stuff. Number 6, a movie I just reviewed not too long ago, The Beyond. I called it a giallo. I was wrong. Apparently it's not a giallo film. It's an Italian horror film, but it doesn't follow all the characteristics of a tried and true giallo movie. But it is Lucio Fulci, which definitely is a style all on its own. Lucio Fulci is probably the most graphic in terms of practical effects, the creepiest director out there. There's a lot of unsettling moments in this movie, actually. And even just the characters, you know, you got this one character, she's blind. You see her white eyes throughout the whole movie. A lot of creepy scenes. I mean, there's the scene with her and the dog like attacks her. Her own like watchdog attacks her. And then you got this great like zombie scene at the end. If you're just diving into Italian horror, definitely make room for The Beyond. Number 5, gotta put a Halloween movie on here, right? Halloween 2. And this is a movie that John Carpenter at first did not want to make. But then the businessman in him kicked in. You gotta check. And I think it was genius, though, to set this movie on the exact same night as the first movie. He didn't direct it. He had Rick Rosenthal come in and direct it. But I still think it's a very effective movie. It is a different movie, I think, in tone than the first movie because Friday had come out before it. And so they wanted to ramp up the blood and the guts and the kills and all that stuff. So it wasn't this tension-filled slasher like the first movie was. But I kind of like that, too. It kind of set it apart. I think Loomis is even better in this movie than he is in the first one. And I think the final act in Halloween 2 is up there with the best. When Loomis ultimately, I said I wasn't going to do a spoil. It's Halloween 2. You've seen Halloween 2 before. Loomis gives his life to save Laurie Strode. That cemented him as one of my favorite horror characters of all time. Definitely. And since I'm talking about Loomis, definitely check out the Halloween fan film, Halloween Night. Not getting paid by those guys or anything. It really honors Loomis with such class and grace, and you have to watch it. I thought it was really good. One of my favorite fan films I've seen, actually. Number 4, Happy Birthday to Me. I love Happy Birthday to Me so much. If you want a movie that just freaking throws so many twists at you that it's almost like ridiculous, but so satisfying, Happy Birthday to Me. You got some great kills with like the shish kebab kill. I said shish kebab. You got some great kills like with the shish kebab kill. But really, I think the big thing that I love about this one was Mary Sue Anderson. Did I say her name right? Elizabeth. Hey Siri, give me the cast for Happy Birthday to Me.
Which one?
Oh, 1981. There we go.
Happy Birthday to Me features Melissa Sue Anderson, Glenn Ford, Tracy E. Bregman, and others.
There we go. Melissa Sue Anderson. Yeah, Melissa Sue Anderson's performance in Happy Birthday to Me was really crazy. I mean, she goes for it. And you know what? I'd rather them go for it than just kind of ride the line of safety. And she gives a really memorable performance. She's really whacked out of her brain. But I love the twist in this movie. It's creepy, it's unpredictable, and they just keep rolling out twist after twist after twist. Number 3, a movie that I literally just reviewed just before dawn. Thank you so much, Barry from Wolfman's Got Nards, for encouraging me to finally watch this movie. He sent me the Blu-ray. I watched it, and I was floored by this movie for a couple reasons. I think it has a really serious, dramatic, eerie atmosphere to it that a lot of camp slashers don't have. The big thing for me is the character arc. You know, the main final girl in this movie, she starts off really scared, and she doesn't want to react, and you know that bothers her. And then by the end of the movie, she stands up for herself. And as far as like portraying a character arc all the way through in a movie, I think this one probably does it the best. And just that last scene floored me. Like, I did not expect where this movie went. It had a couple twists in it too as well. But I think this movie was so like dramatically satisfying. I guess that's the phrase I'm looking for. And it's one of those movies that you can't get out of your head after you watch it. Great score too. Number 2, American Werewolf in London. This is a great movie. It really is. You know, it's one of those movies that you're just constantly with it throughout the whole thing. John Landis directed it. These two very likable characters are in London by themselves. To me, just two characters walking down a dark road, and you know, you just have this feeling that something's not right. I think American Werewolf in London portrays that probably the best. I mean, this movie really puts you in that world, and you just feel it, you know? And I think David Naughton gives such a great performance. He's probably one of the most likable characters I've ever seen in a horror movie. And so you're just with him throughout the whole thing. And it's heartbreaking. You know, this love story between him and the nurse in the movie. It's another example of a love story that really works in a horror movie, and you love that relationship so much that at the end, it's heartbreaking. And you can't not mention Rick Baker's work in this movie. Still to this day, probably the most iconic werewolf transformation ever put to film, and it still holds up. It's scary, really scary looking. And this movie has a lot of comedy in it. It finds that balance that you need if you want to have comedy in your horror movie, but still be scary, because there's some really scary scenes. One of the scenes in this movie is a scene that I remember from my childhood that was just like burned into my brain. Of course, when he's having his nightmare, his eyes are closed on the bed, and then when he opens them, you see the yellow eyes. And then number 1, of course, Evil Dead. I'm not even an Evil Dead fanatic. And I watched the second movie before I finally watched the first movie. I watched the first movie probably like 10 years ago. But it belongs in number 1 because of how iconic it is, how different it is. Still to this day, the first Evil Dead has its own flavor, and it is just a straight up horror movie. You know, he got that out of his system, Sam Raimi, and then when he comes back in the second movie, he makes it more of a horror comedy. But Sam Raimi's directing is just insane. You know, in every movie that Sam Raimi does, he has his own stamp. It's always very frantic. I'd say probably out of all the movies on this list, Evil Dead is probably the scariest and loudest. It really goes for broke, and it takes no prisoners. And it's interesting that Sam Raimi went from directing a movie that's this crazy, this indie, this low budget, and ended up, you know, doing like the Spider-Man franchise. But, you know, as far as like making a movie on like the lowest budget possible, look to Evil Dead. You know, he came up with so many different ways of filming a scene, you know, from like putting, I think they had like a 2x4 get up, and they just rolled it through the woods, and so you get that iconic shot of, you know, just the zoom in to the cabin. And the introduction of Ash Williams. Who doesn't love Ash Williams? I mean, he is probably the greatest male character in horror history. So anyway, guys, that is it. That is my top 10 favorite movies from 1981. Like I said, I probably won't be doing this for other years. I just love 1981 so much that I felt the need to do a top 10 for it. Anyway, let me know your favorites down below. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drumdum out.